Previously on the Game On podcast.
I was going to ask, when did you sort of realise that that cricket was going to be the main sport that you were going to play? It sounds like the height was probably the deciding factor.
Yeah, it probably was. I wasn't that good at footy either, so I wasn't that good at tennis. So I was sort of just a decent at all of them, and then cricket was sort of the one that I sort of excelled at a bit at a younger age. So I was just happy to go through that path, and I sort of loved it. I sort of fell in love with the game after the 2005 Ashes. I sort of fell in love with cricket after watching that, staying up every night watching that. I just felt that's what I want to do. That's, be able to represent your country would be a pretty amazing thing. So I was just, sort of got hooked on cricket from there on, and everything else sort of took a back step after that.
And when did you move down to South Australia?
I was 15 when I moved down. I went to Prince Albert College.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
On the back of, probably just more opportunities for education. The education system, while it can be good, I probably needed to, probably needed to sort myself out. Wasn't the best when it came to academics, so my parents sort of sent me down south, thankfully. My mum was a pretty big driver for that. She sort of said, you need to go sort yourself out. So I moved down when I was 15 to boarding school, and then, it sort of helped me probably pursue other avenues of, obviously sport, academics, and all that sort of stuff. So it was a great move, really. And
did you just play for the school at that stage, or were you involved with the club?
I was involved loosely with Sturt through my uncle, Nick, and Tim, obviously playing at Sturt. So I sort of just, I was associated by name, really. And then once I'd finished private school, because you had to play for your school until you were 16, 17. So once I was done there, I'd go and play grade cricket for Sturt. So that was sort of quite nice to go and have a bit of both, play men's and kids cricket. So it was good.
And of course, you opened at Prince's with Kelvin Smith, generally, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so we had a pretty good, pretty strong side. It's safe to say we didn't lose many games.
Was Opes playing then? I'm trying to think. Was Elliot Opie playing then, or is he a bit after that? Just trying to remember.
He was a bit after me.
Yeah.
He was a bit before me, sorry.
Right. I was just trying to get my years right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tommy Andrews as well in our team.
Yeah.
So we had quite a strong side. Right. So we're quite lucky.
And then at Sturt, and then you decided to go to uni, which Mick took brilliantly, didn't he? He didn't mind that at all. Like how long was it before he spoke to you again with us?
No, it was a couple of days, but he was all right. He was fine. He was really good with it all. Really,
to stir Mick up.
I probably hit on his own himself, but it was obviously nothing personal against him. Yeah. So I just sort of, but he took it really well. He didn't take it well at the start, but he was awesome. He was very accepting of the fact that it was my own journey. So he was great with that, and ever since then he's been super supportive, and he's always just been in my corner ever since. So I'm very grateful for him. He's probably out of all my family members, he was probably the one person that probably actually spent a lot of time actually training with me. Like my dad, while he liked cricket, never really, wasn't going to spend hours throwing balls to me, where Mick was always keen to do that stuff. So I owe him a lot for that.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome to Game On. My name's Pete, and today I'm joined by a special guest presenter in Phil Fechner. Mate, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Pete. A bit nervous, sweaty palms here today, mate. I did a bit of a podcast in Gawler myself, but this is a elaborate setup here we've got. So
we have Malcolm on the sick list today, just recovering, I think, from a little bit of an illness, but hope to have him back on board and wishing him the best at the moment. But welcome aboard, Phil, and Looking forward to hearing your comments. I know you're a mad Port fan. You can give us the Port perspective when we get to the AFL, mate.
Will do, yes. Footy umpire for about 30 years, so I'll quickly run through.
Yeah, mate, absolutely.
Obviously umpired tennis for 30 years.
Yep.
Stupid, isn't it? Umpiring.
Mate, what is it about these podcasts, all these umpires? Malcolm being an umpire
right,
yourself, being an umpire as well. So
up in the Barossa. So enjoyed all that. Played footy before that for probably 20 years as well. It makes me pretty old, doesn't it, Pete? So
mate, you've got less hair than what I've got. Mate, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks,
and we thank Jake Weatherald for his interview. We did pre-record that with Malcolm about a week or so ago, and part 2 is coming up a little bit later, so looking forward to that as well.
No, I was sorry to lose him to Tassie this year. He's an Australian cap in the making, I believe. So
absolutely.
Anyway.
Around the grounds.
All right, Phil, part of our Around the Grounds today, we're going to talk a little bit about the basketball, the SNFL. We're going to talk Norwood. I know you being a Port man, it's probably the wrong week to bring you on, but that's all right, and the soccer. But to kick us off today, we're going to talk about the AFL. We'll kick off with Adelaide. Lukey Pedler signing a 2-year contract extension. What do you think, mate?
Well, they've got to keep him. I mean, they lose too many, don't they? Let's face it. They all want to go home or whatever reason.
Yep.
I mean, you've got to keep guys like that, don't you?
Took a step this year, obviously, getting a bit more game time. Done his time, I suppose, in the Magoos, the reserves or the SNFL. Certainly one player to look out for that is going to take that next step, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
And doesn't mind a bit of a sausage roll as well, and that's a good player to have about for an additional 2 years. So
yeah, they've got to keep him because you look at the other sides going around in the AFL, and there's some quality players that the Crows have lost.
That's right,
Pete? So.
Yeah, you put together the Crows and also some other teams, their best 22 of who they've lost, and you just scratch your head going, these guys would have won 3, 4, 5 premierships by that stage.
I don't want to even say that, Pete.
No.
Yeah, I agree with you. They would have, yeah.
Mate, we move on to Port Adelaide, probably your area of expertise, but Connor Rosie named captain and an 8-year extension, probably the right week to bring you on. What do you think, mate?
Very happy. Very happy. I think it's a good appointment. Hopefully it doesn't. I reckon it affected Ollie a little bit when he was captain. But Connor's pretty mature for his age, 23.
Yep.
Very happy with Butters as his deputy.
Yep.
They're like brothers.
Yes.
So I'm very happy, and I'm very happy with the recruits we've got. Really looking forward to this season. It's a make or break.
Absolutely. And listening to your podcast a little bit with Rick Drewer there, he's not a fan of Kenny Hinkley.
No.
How do you see that playing out over the next 12 months?
I've got to admit, I've sort of got a soft spot for Kenny.
Okay. We won't tell Rick this.
No, don't listen to this, Rick, either. I just think he's a real people's person.
Yep.
Perhaps he does play his mates every now and then. I think there's a few weeks there that perhaps he could have got dropped for, he's had a few bad weeks, but they stay in.
Yes.
But I just like his attitude, and I think he's a real Connor. It looks like Connor and Butters just absolutely love him. So what can you do? He hasn't had the success that he should have, probably, with the team he's had.
Yep.
But let's surge on this year and see how we go.
They've recruited, obviously, for needs. We talk about a little bit on previous episodes that, the back line with Alira and Radigalia may complement each other, but they also might get in the way of each other a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Look, it will. But we needed another big back, another big strong back, and Radigalia is the man. Rux was our problem.
Yep.
Scotty was
he was cooked.
Just about. He was done.
Yep.
He was done. As we know, he's at Port Districts.
Yep.
They're wrapped. And
why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, absolutely. But we needed somebody that could get up and about. Scotty couldn't jump anymore, and he was fantastic for us. And he wore his heart on his sleeve, basically, Pete, every week. And but he was done. So
where do you see Ollie fitting in? Obviously, didn't get as much midfield time this season. Well, sort of paid the price for it a little bit, but seems a bit refreshed and renewed that maybe he'll spend a bit more time this year.
Yep, I think he will. I think he'll be in and out the midfield and probably on that half forward line. his kicking, I mean, his goal kicking's not his strong point, but I still see him in our best, 21, basically, 22, whatever it is now. I can't see him not making it, put it that way.
And probably the last question for me is Boki. He's like a fine wine, has been getting better with age, but this year do we see him being a bit more the pinch hitter?
I think he will be. Unfortunately, I reckon he's gone to that little bit more one pace. Yep. He had that, he could break away. He's more that one pace, and I think he's definitely in his last year this year. Yep. It'll be, and I hope so. He gets a decent run, and I suppose with the sub rule, exactly could be that pinch hitting player that they need, that mentor. Could work very, very well for Port Adelaide, and vice versa for the Crows. Rory Sloane might be that kind of role as well. The man for all occasions, comes in when they need him, plays him as the sub. Could work very, very well for both Adelaide teams. Exactly right. They're probably in the same boat, aren't they? Then probably in their last year, and I mean, you keep him on the list. I think Travis has been a fantastic stalwart of the club. Could have gone back to Geelong many years ago, but hung in, and he's been fantastic. Let's face it. So, all
right, mate, we'll stick with the AFL still. The number one pick in Harley Reid there puts a bit of a scare through the West Coast camp with a potential injury during their pre-season training.
Unbelievable.
It's not what you want to be seeing as a West Coast person, do you?
No, not with their... I mean, look, they've still got a good side, Pete. I just can't see why... like McGovern's really struggled, and Herney was struggling last year, now retired. So, and losing Kennedy, I mean, Kennedy was, he's probably one of the all-time, So, look, they've still got a good list. So, you don't want that. Number one draft pick, you finally got him. And
they made a hullabaloo about it, and, we're not going to trade anything else. We're going to get our number one man, and they get him, and a couple of weeks into pre-season, a potential injury. But I've since read that it's not as serious as what it was reported, but you don't want to see good players going off the track. So, And to finish us off on the AFL urged to make changes after the Shane Tuck death, and amongst some legal challenges, sort of no competitive training. There's no chucking the after a bad loss, chucking the mouth guards in the kit bag and out on the track that week and going full bore. Not going to happen anymore.
It's a funny point, isn't it, Pete? I mean, you take on footy and there's always going to be head knocks. And, I don't know where they've got to go with this, but perhaps you've got to sign a legal document saying,
you take the responsibility.
Yeah, you've got to have independent doctors. There's no doubt about that. Port showed that last year with bringing on Aaliyah and that when they hit heads, and they got a big fine for it. So independent doctors is one way, but I don't know. Life after footy, I mean, you play footy knowing it's a contact sport.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a funny old...
It's going to be an interesting couple of years. Obviously, this report's only just come out, but previous on our podcast, we had Sean Tasker talk about Neuroflex, how they're getting around all the clubs, taking baseline recordings, I suppose, and using that to try and mitigate some circumstances as far as not putting players back on the ground or not playing them the week after or 2 weeks after the initial concussion, and so on and so on. We're becoming a very litigious society. It's going to go that way a little bit. You're right, maybe it is a point that contracts are going to be signed with the intent that there's going to be no recourse or very little recourse. But also I think there's going to be a players' fund that is going to come out of this that will be put to some of these players' medical problems at a later stage in life, and that's where it's heading.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. I mean, Tucky, that's just the absolute worst thing. I mean, you look Danny Frawley.
Yes, that was what I was going to say as well.
So it's just shocking. But, well, I don't know. Yep. It's a legal thing, and whatever happens.
We can only make comment on the information we've got at the time, and it's going to be an interesting one to watch. All right, mate, we move on to cricket. The first test started in Perth, and Nathan Lyon back in the team, eyeing off a bit of a personal record for himself.
Well, you've got to play him, let's face it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The old, what was he? He was cutting the grass at Adelaide Oval or something.
Correct, when they recruited him?
Yeah, and played a few games for South Australia and a few good games, and away we go. But, I mean, you've got to play him. He's just a fantastic bowler, and the other guys are coming through. But if he's
Available,
you're playing him.
Australia currently in the first innings, all out for 487. David Warner top scoring there with 164.
What do you say?
Well, that was going to be my next point. It's Warner's swan song this Test series. What are your thoughts on that? Whether he should have been given it or not given it, because it has divided opinions.
Oh, absolutely. Probably before he made his 160, I was probably the other way.
Yes.
You can't really call when you want to retire.
Yes.
But let's face it, I mean, he has been very, very good. And, 164, and in just about record time, he doesn't muck around out there, does he?
No, he doesn't.
And so, I think it's a good gesture for the Australian cricket to do that now.
Fair enough. Obviously, he top scored in the first innings. Most players got off to a reasonable start.
Yeah.
Mitch Marsh, obviously, with 90 there, and then running out of players towards the end there. And then Pakistan currently, as we speak, 2 for 132. We are recording a touch later than we normally would. So some of this was pre-planned before the test, but now we're going to talk about it a little bit more. And Amir Jamal, obviously the pick of Pakistan's bowlers there, with 6 for 111 off of 20.2 overs, reasonably economical.
Yeah, absolutely. It sort of looks, for 100 and so odd, but he's bowled a lot of overs there. So, I wasn't that unimpressed with their bowling attack.
No,
really.
it wasn't. It wasn't as bad as we sort of were led to believe. But obviously, Australia looking to get off to a good start on day 2. Maybe get them out reasonably cheaply and then bat for a little bit of time, set a big score, and then bowl them out again. But we'll see how we go with that.
A couple early wickets and make the win and loss. Otherwise it could be a draw.
Absolutely,
they'll bat all day.
Absolutely. All right, mate. We'll talk about the BBL pitch debacle down in Geelong. What was going on there?
I started watching it. I sort of thought, what's going on here? It was bouncing everywhere and slow and going through. And I didn't realise it was a wet pitch. I came in after they'd done all of the...
I was the same.
Yeah, it leaked underneath or something, and you can't play on that. I mean, someone can get killed, hitting the head or...
Yes.
Yeah.
It almost reminded me of the old backyard cricket days where, it hits a pebble and goes at right angles.
Exactly
you were sort of just scratching your head. And I think the players were a bit that way before the first ball was bowled, and then a couple of overs in, they realised that it just wasn't going to happen, and pulled the pin. And a bit unfortunate, because I think that was the only game being played during the BBL down in Geelong. A lot of people would have gone to that game, knowing that it was their one game down there and it was cancelled. So crazy. And then just to finish off on cricket, Alyssa Healy unveiled as Australian skipper to usher in a new era for women's cricket.
Probably obvious choice.
Yeah.
Obvious choice. So, they'll go on. I mean, they're absolutely killing it, aren't they, Australia? So,
countries are catching up to them a little bit. Obviously, India, England have always been around the mark, but a couple of other countries are starting to make their mark as well. But it is a bit of a new era for Australian women's cricket, and there's certainly a lot of good players out there.
Absolutely.
And we saw that with the Strikers BBL winning team. Back to back. That there are a few good players that deserve an opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, mate, we're going to talk AFLW. Daisy Pearce announced head coach at West Coast.
Well, you can't argue with her record either, Pete, can you?
No.
I mean,
second to none.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, AFLW hasn't been around long, but as good as they are, Daisy's it, isn't it? So, and West Coast have been struggling, haven't they? Sort of.
New team, in the last couple of years coming into the AFLW.
Yep. So she's probably just what they need, that sort of, a bit more focal point, high profile.
Spent some time, obviously, with Melbourne, I think, in their coaching box, but then I think was with Geelong this year in their male program. So certainly doing her apprenticeship. Here's a bit of a left field question. Could she be the first AFL men's coach to be coached by a women player?
Well,
could she be the one?
Yeah, I suppose if anybody is, she'll be it.
That's why I asked the question. It's a bit of a left field question. There's probably not too many other AFLW coaches.
No, see, Erin Phillips is in the port box.
That was probably my next question. Is Erin right behind her in?
Probably is.
Yeah,
probably is. It'll be interesting to see what she does this year. I'm not sure how much impact they'd have in a male box.
Yep.
I don't know.
It's a fair call. Sure. I mean, it's one of those ones that I could see her being maybe a senior assistant coach.
Yeah.
But I think we're a long way off of maybe being an AFL coach.
I probably hope so.
But clubs are looking for different ways to do things. It's an interesting conundrum that we're going to throw up and throw out there, to our listeners.
I would love to be in the box just to see what Erin puts in.
Brings to it,
brings to it, yeah. Don't know. Perhaps she does. But anyway, time will tell.
It's an alternative point of view, and yes, she's played at the highest level for AFLW. You look at someone like Brendan Bolton, who Neil Craig talks glowingly about, who was on our podcast previously, talks glowingly about he'd have him as a senior coach, tomorrow, given the opportunity. And he never really played at that highest level, but sees things, slightly differently. And I think this is where teams and clubs are looking for that advantage, is that they can offer a different point of view. Yeah,
I believe you don't have to have played AFL to coach AFL.
Yep.
It's all in the mindset and what sort of game plans and
highly organised people.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, so
all right.
Interesting.
Ebony Marinoff crowned Crows club champion, but the Crows re-signed Maddie Clark and the captain, Chelsea Randall.
Oh, yeah.
She's retired from being the captain.
Yeah, she has. Marinoff, I mean, one of the players that I can actually watch, fantastic. I'm not a big women's footy fan, I've got to admit, Pete, and I'll admit it on here, but the Crows are one team that you can watch. And Clarkey, I think he's as good as there is in there in the AFL women. So as a coach, so he seems to do things right and gets the girls on. Yeah, they play a good brand of footy.
Absolutely. The Crows do play an exciting, or the AFL Crows W play an exciting brand. They are or have been a bit of a step ahead, and you're right, Maddie Clark has probably been integral to that as well. But teams are catching up the more that they're in the competition as well. So good to see Ebony Marinoff. We've talked about her previously, Malcolm and I, going great player, probably burns the ball a little bit too much, but she's sort of coming from that see ball, get meterage. Her next evolution, I think, is now delivery and being a little bit more precise.
There's a lot in that category, though, isn't there?
There is.
I mean, that's probably the thing that turns me off is the ball skills, and that's only going to improve.
Yep.
You got little kids playing footy now, little girls playing footy now. So they didn't have that. They might have kicked the ball in the backyard with a big brother, but
the pathways are a little more clear.
Getting coached, and it's going to get better and better as we go.
And to finish off on the AFLW, mate, Bailey Hunt claimed a major honour at the Western Bulldogs, the Best and Fairest Award, despite being delisted by the club 2 weeks earlier. I think there's some egg on the face of some of the of the Western Bulldogs recruiters.
Yeah, that's unbelievable, isn't it? I wonder if that's been done before.
I don't think it has. I know that doing a little bit of research into some of these quirky little things, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on with the basketball, in that 12th man or a substitute fielder actually got man of the match for taking 5 or 6 wickets. So this is sort of in that category that you go,
it sure is.
Hang on, delisted and yet wins their best and fairest. I think there'd be some other clubs sniffing around for a player of that calibre.
That is unreal.
Absolutely. All right, mate, we're going to take a very, very quick break. We're going to come back with the basketball, the SNFL, the soccer, and Jake Weatherald Part 2.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
All right, Phil, we'll keep going with basketball, mate. The Adelaide 36ers fall to a new low at the foot of the NBL table after a 101-116 loss against the Cairns Taipans.
Perhaps it's more than the coach, Pete.
Potentially. My next point there was actually Scotty Ninnis has taken over an interim coach. Didn't make any difference.
No. And the second time, Scotty's had a run at it a few years back.
Yep.
Perhaps they should have gone out of the style a bit. You know, got somebody from somewhere else and brought some new blood into the club. I don't know, but they're really struggling. Yeah.
They still managed to get a full crowd though at the entertainment centre. So whatever they're doing behind the scenes is working very well. But I've talked about it previously with Malcolm in that they're a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde side. At one minute they seem to be hot, and then the next minute they're completely cold. And I hold hopes for them that they sell out a crowd that everyone wants the best for them, and yet we just can't quite get the job done.
Agree. Oh, I can't wait. I've got to go and have a look at them. I haven't been to the new stadium since they're there. But, I mean, it's crowds certainly no problem. It's just the winning and consistency.
Yep, absolutely. And obviously some personnel changes along the way may have caused some of these rifts. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but, we did talk about previously that, their trip or their schedule that they sort of brought up didn't need to be brought up. It was sort of should have been kept a bit in-house, and they get a chance to redeem themselves against Melbourne United, who are sitting top at the moment on later on today. Good luck with that
Is
one.
It at home?
It's away.
Away.
Yep.
Okay. Well, good luck.
All right, mate. Norwood. Each week we talk about each SANFL club in their comings and goings for the 2024 season. We just happened to be up to Norwood this week. I did anticipate Malcolm would be in here, and he'd absolutely love talking about Norwood. You being a Port man, maybe not so much, but the comings are Mitch O'Neill from South Adelaide, Billy Cootie from Essendon, Ben Simpson from North Launceston, Jordan Boyle from West Adelaide, Cooper Morley from, I think, returning from Collingwood, I believe, and Alistair Lord and Jove Cooper. High turnover of list. We've talked a bit off air about some turning over of players in some other sports and how it disrupts things and moves things around a little bit. Nor didn't quite have a good year last year because they did have a turnover of list. They're doing it again.
Very slow start, wasn't it, Pete? And I was surprised at that. Yeah, I was surprised at that. You always get that turnover, don't you? Because it's a big commitment, the SANFL. Mm-hmm. It's 4 or 5 days a week training for not
a lot of return.
Money, and obviously reserves. I see you've lost Pascoe and Rowlands. Well, they've gone to Golden Grove or wherever it is, and they'd be on a few dollars there.
Absolutely.
So they're not going to play reserves footy for, I don't know, $100 a game or whatever it might be. I'm not too sure. So they're just going to move on. So you're going to get that turnover, aren't you?
Yeah, and each club, as we've talked about at the moment, have got 5 or 6 that they're turning over. Obviously, with the AFL still sort of deciding their last couple of list spots, there might be some players that will come into these clubs, obviously, that didn't get an opportunity at AFL level. But at the moment, it looks like this is pretty much what most clubs are set with, and good luck to Norwood for the year, and good luck to the SANFL clubs as well, because I think things are going to change.
Yeah, absolutely love the SANFL. I love watching it. If ever I get a chance to watch the SANFL on TV, I'll watch the SANFL before the AFL.
Yep.
I just love the country, like the grounds.
Yes.
Not the country grounds, but the suburban grounds.
Yep.
It's fantastic. What a great and the umpiring's a lot better, I've got to admit too, Pete, while we're on that.
Yeah, well, you're the umpire specialist, you and Malcolm.
It's a lot easier
I will
to
take
watch.
your word from it. But, yeah, I agree. It is a little bit easier to watch, and you're right. We've talked previously in our conversations about some of the all-time classic suburban grounds, and I think Norwood's one of the best,
I love
for
Norwood.
sure.
Love it.
Yep.
We've got to do that this year, Pete.
Yep.
Port Norwood at
Norwood Oval.
Love it. Friday night. Be great.
Absolutely. And to finish us off on Around the Grounds today, mate, Adelaide United are going down 2-0 to Brisbane Roar. Obviously, they did play last night as well and going down 1-0 as well. So things are not looking as good for Adelaide United as they were at the start of the season.
No, absolutely. Obviously, losing Goody's been a big out. The club weren't sort of that disappointed, so I don't know whether there's a bit of in-house sort of one man, bigger than Texas. But anyway, good friends with Ryan Kiddo, so I've had a few words to him, and they're going along all right, but yeah, again, a bit inconsistent and probably losing to teams that they shouldn't lose to, losing at home. Again, usually a sellout crowd.
Yes.
The crowd isn't the problem. Probably 1 or 2 short.
Yep.
I would say.
Yeah.
Good players. But
I mean, the coach is very renowned for playing local talent, so there is a little bit of that as well. Yeah, Carl Viet obviously very, very passionate about promoting young players, and Irukunda is probably the classic example. Got his opportunity, took his opportunity, and now is on a mega $1 million transfer deal to Bayern Munich. So there is that fine balancing act that the club needs to obviously do, that the coach wants to promote youth.
Yep.
They're probably one or two short.
Yep. Great.
Goodwin, like you said, Goodwin being there is probably key, but he's not there. They need someone to step up. You're right.
Absolutely. But they'll roll on all right, I think. And if they're playing youth like that, good luck. Have a year, down a little bit further.
Yeah.
But
middle of the table maybe, and then springboard for the future. And I think that's where Viet is a little bit out as well.
I like him.
Oh, I do. Yeah, absolutely. Adelaide United playing the Newcastle Jets on next Friday, the 22nd at 7:15, and that one is at home. So for all United fans, get down.
I'm going to try and. I usually see Ryan. He usually gets me a couple of tickets, so I might go down and watch that one. I haven't been for 12 months, so it'd be good to get down.
Absolutely. All right, mate. We're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Weatherald Part 2.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Local legends.
I've got to be able to also be right mentally. And you're not always going to be right mentally, but, there's a good opportunity to, if you can be consistent in what you're doing day to day. It's hard sometimes when you're playing cricket all the time and on the road and in front of people's eyes. You sometimes you lose the who you are as a person, which is makes it quite difficult sometimes.
I reckon that's superb in terms of incredible honesty, and I think we're all guilty of forgetting that your life is lived publicly. And the other thing too, as a first class cricketer, you're travelling so much. It's really forgotten. And you're a classic example at the moment. People wouldn't realise that Jake Weatherald's over in Perth at the moment because he's not playing in the game. They would think, well, we'd be back in Tasmania, etc. And people just don't realise. And then that pressure that does put on relationship-wise. And I think that's a really mature, fantastic, honest way of looking at it. Jake?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's one of those things where you just want to, you want to give your career the best. You want to give it the best opportunity and stuff like that. But also, there's just no point really unless you're in a good enough mind frame to be able to do it. There's just, unfortunately, sport doesn't lend you to be in a mind frame where you're not enjoying it because, unfortunately, it's just too hard lines in terms of performance and stuff like that. So, and you're also doing a disservice to the people around you, your teammates. And not only that, obviously your family as well, because you're stressing out so much. So, it is. I've got a lot better at it, and I really appreciate the opportunities that cricket's given me in terms of travel, and I really think it's an amazing thing. Obviously, being the fact that it's given me an incredible life, it's given me so many great opportunities to be what I wanted to do in sport, but also, you sort of have to understand that not everyone finds it as enjoyable as what it can be sometimes. It can be also, like any job, I think, can be quite miserable sometimes. So.
That's fantastic, mate, for sharing that. Was there a moment or a person that sort of set you on the right course, so to speak?
Yeah, my partner was so good at that. She was awesome. Me and her have been together for nearly 13 years now.
Come on, name, please. Yeah. Come on with us. Come on. We've got to give you... and I was going to give a mention of you getting married soon, and that was coming to that, so come on. Name, please.
Yeah, so her name's Rachel.
Yep.
Her name's Rachel, so she we've been together since school.
I knew it was a while.
So we've been together a long time, but she's been incredible for me. I probably would have retired, to be fair, if I wasn't for her. So I probably would have just given up cricket and sort of just gone on a more of a under the radar sort of job, or probably try to make sure my life was a bit more less hectic. So thankfully for her, she sort of was big on making sure that I did what I loved, and I do love playing cricket. So she's been awesome. She was probably the person that sort of made sure that while I was in bad places, she was the constant no matter what.
Yeah, no, that's great. And
very important.
Trying to remember, Italy trying to remember where you're getting married, and of course you've got the big fella in Harry Conway on memory. Is that correct, Weathers? Test my memory.
Yeah, he's a celebrant. So we're
that could be entertaining.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're going over to Italy next year in April. So we're pretty excited for that. It's only about 40 of us going over. If obviously the Weatheralds, there's so many of them, it was going to be impossible to invite everyone. So.
Yeah. Yep.
We sort of said, we'll go over to Italy and sort of avoid the fact that everyone's going to have to be, they're not going to want to come either, but at the same time, like, I didn't want to put any pressure on them to, want to come all the way to Italy, especially with all the families and stuff like that. So we just thought...
Yeah, there is 8 million Weatheralds. That's a fair point. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, no, there's tons of them. So we just I sort of said, we'll avoid all that. We had like an engagement party where a few people, most of my family came, which was great. So, I was happy.
And so deciding to go to Tasmania, Jake, just go through that, mate.
Yeah, it was a strange one, to be fair. I remember just sitting there with my partner, and she's like, "Oh, have you ever reached out to any other states to potentially do a bit of a move and try something a bit different?" And yeah, we messaged the coach, Chef Vaughan, obviously knowing him.
Yep.
And he was like, "Yeah, we'd be really keen." So it wasn't to do with the fact that I didn't like soccer or anything. It was just an opportunity to do something a bit different. I'd been at soccer for a long time, and I felt as though that there might be an opportunity to grow under the playing group there in Tassie. They're obviously going quite well and quite a strong organisation at the moment. So it's been a move that I probably felt as though it was just an opportunity to learn, and I just felt as though I needed to do something a bit different. So I was quite happy with the move in terms of what it's brought me, and it's brought us new challenges. Obviously struggling to get a game because they're winning everything, and so it's been really good in terms of that. But I think it's just a new challenge, which I'm really excited for.
Now we've got to back up a little bit here and talk about that. Your Matador Cup form earned you a contract for the Adelaide Strikers.
Yeah, good point. Yes.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a shell shock, really. I barely played any T20 cricket, and T20 cricket was sort of just coming through in the clubland, so. I hadn't really played much, so when I went and had done well on my white ball stuff in terms of red ball, 50 over stuff, I sort of jumped into a T20 side, and I was absolutely useless, to be fair. I had no idea what I was doing. I was slogging everything, so I sort of learned on the fly a little bit, and then it sort of took me a couple of years or a year and a bit to sort of blossom into the player I probably wanted to be, and then once I sort of understood my game a bit better. Cricket beat, it was awesome. I really enjoyed the T20, a bit of a break away from red ball cricket and 50 over cricket, and just a bit more of the entertainment sort of part of it all, which is, quite cool as a cricketer, I think.
Yeah, I think you really relate well with the crowd on the boundary and that sort of stuff. You take that. I think that's something you really embrace, which probably some players do a bit under sufferance, where I think it's something where you really enjoy doing, and you can see that. I have sat with Mick at, I reckon it was a New Year's Eve game, just wandered in and ran into Mick, and I think it was Lucy, I reckon, who was quite excited that she was sitting with me to watch you, and so that was quite funny.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, it is. It's a cool thing, you don't, it's like, your idols my idols aren't always cricketers, but they're like, musicians or people that have entertained and stuff like that, and they're things that, they're not, it's not a vanity sort of thing. It's more of like a thing that you might want to inspire people to do things that you've done, or, want to be a part of their lives in some way, and I think it's a great opportunity to do that.
And the Strikers obviously having a little bit of success there in, 17-18?
Yeah, we did, yeah. It was a great thing. Yeah, it was one of those things where we played amazingly that year, and then it was a big thing for South Australia as well to finally get that monkey off our back a little bit in terms of some silverware, apart from the one day stuff that happened a bit earlier. But it was great. I thought it was awesome for the state.
Probably one thing about the Big Bash, and I'm a traditional cricket nut, and if South Australia win the Shield, which unfortunately doesn't happen very often.
You'll go missing for a week.
I sort of disappear for a week or two, and that when that with the one day final, the 2020 final, and you made 100 in the final, 2 Weathers, so there was certainly a lot of celebration amongst the fact that you smashed them that game and that. But after we'd won, I was sitting with Mark Robinson, and it was, okay, see you, mate. Catch you in the week. And where, for me, South Australia to win something is huge, and yet, for me, the Strikers in that way, just because it's a 2020, it's a franchise and not your state bit. And as we know, I think there were 2 or 3 players who actually left within 24 hours of us winning. I think it was Colin Ingram, I reckon Benny Lachlan, and someone else, I reckon, on memory. So that was a little bit different as well for you as players.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
What's your thoughts there, Jake? You know where I'm coming from.
Cricket's a strange sport like that. You know, it's so different to footy and basically every other sport in the world, where soccer's probably a little bit similar, where you can play for multiple different teams and you can move and play different tournaments and stuff. But in terms of cricket, there's just so much cricket nowadays that you're playing back to back, and then if you're overseas, you're moving off, and there's just so much going on that, like, I play a Shield game 5 days later, so in the preparation, you have different coaches. I remember Jamie calling me saying, like, mate, you better be ready to go tomorrow for training, and that was the day after the win. So we sort of like, it's sort of like you're constantly thinking about the next thing. So I remember it's a good example with obviously the World Cup that the boys just won recently.
Like we haven't found Travis yet.
And they've got to play a T20 game not long later. So the celebration part of it's more of a money-making thing, and a more of a not saying that going to make Shield cricket is money-making, but it's sort of on the preface where everyone's, unfortunately, the train all pre-season, play all year, then finish and then celebrates. That stuff's sort of slowly eking away, or not happening as much anymore in cricket.
Yeah, and I hate that. I've got to, you know me as a traditionalist, and I just think it's very rare that you win something, and it should be
you can't celebrate it.
Well, it should be done appropriately, not let's be honest. Australia win the World Cup. It's meant to be the World Cup, the pinnacle, and we're playing a bloody 2020 game 2 days later, and it's ridiculous. It's just money. No, it is. It's just money. It's money hungry. It's not money making. It's money hungry. Is probably. I can probably say that a bit easier than you, Jake. And as we know, cricket can be funny in that regard of who says what. But I just think we've lost the game has lost the plot to some extent. That's a way of putting it.
The movement and stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Now we've been talking about your team success, some individual success, winning the 2017 Bradman Young Cricketer of the Year award.
Yeah, there's been a little bit. I don't like talking about my individual success because, I've enjoyed some success, which has been good. It's always a good thing to go and play sport. You play in a team sport, but to be an important part of the cog is an awesome thing as well too. So you sort of have to. There are times throughout my career that I've done things that I've been very proud of myself and helping my team win games, which is the great thing about sport, being a part of that. It's all good to win games, but if you're not doing anything in those winning teams, sometimes it's a bit hard to keep your head up. But to be a part of some great wins and part of great games and having good individual performances has been pretty cool. So
absolutely.
So there's been a few individual things I'm very proud of, but at the same time, like as I said, like being a part of this Tasmanian side I'm not even a part of the team, but being a part of a squad that's been successful over the last 4 or 5 months or last 4 months has been pretty cool as well. Something that I probably didn't get as much when I was at the Redbacks, so it's been cool. Yeah,
absolutely.
So looking at things to the future, Weathers, what's up in the world for Jake off field in terms of for the future in general? Because it's obviously something you've now got the balance where you admit, hey, I've got to take time off here and that. So what's the thoughts overall for the future there, Jake?
Yeah, I think I'm in a good position to play for another 5 or 6 years, hopefully. So I'm hopefully trying to do that, which is the goal. Obviously, kick into late in your 30s. I think I'll probably invest in myself a lot more in terms of my body and stuff like that, and obviously my mind. So, and after that, I'm not too sure, to be absolutely fair with you, but I'll probably try to figure out ways of probably staying in cricket a little bit, but also trying to do something a little bit different as well too. where that takes me, I'm not too sure. But
yeah, I admit that does fascinate me a bit with you, Jake. So there might have been, I was trying to say, wondering which way that would go, because you're a thoughtful person. I wondered if like conservation and anything like that, which is sort of a Jake Weatherald personality part where that's involved, possibly. Who knows?
Yeah, probably there are probably elements of that in there. There are probably elements of like political stuff I probably get into a little bit as well too. But at the same time, I'm not overly sure right now. But I'm certainly investing in times. I'm trying to figure out things. I definitely understand that there's a lot more to life than just playing sports. So and I'd love to be a part of society outside of sport. So yeah, wherever that takes me, I'm sure I'll find something that I'm passionate about, and then take that on.
There might be hopefully a couple of little Weatheralds running around as well in the future. So, yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
Yeah.
Now, mate, did you get an opportunity to converse with the Australian team at some stage during your career?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've been very lucky that I've been able to play with a lot of the Australian players, but also be able to have some training sessions. I was up at the NPS, or the National Performance Centre, for 6 months.
That's right, yeah.
And I was up there for 6 months, so spending time to train with a lot of the Australian players there. Got to travel to India, train over there with the MRF and Glenn McGrath and stuff like that. And I've been very fortunate to train with some amazing cricketers, and some proper superstars, which has probably been the coolest part of my career so far. I think the thing that I probably only tell my kids about my career is the fact that I got to play with some of these guys. Which has been, So, but the Australian team is obviously the thing that you when you go and train with them, it's something that you just, that's all you've thought about as a kid. So, been lucky enough to train with them a few times, which has been good. So,
part of one of the most famous catches in cricket history, I reckon you'll be able to tell future Weatheralds about as well, mate.
Yeah, exactly right. I'll definitely throw that in there. The world's greatest catch.
Yes.
Courtesy of Ben Loughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. No, you played your part. You caught the flick back.
Yeah, I did a little bit, I guess.
You did the important part. Bugger what Benny did, yeah. Mind you, that was a fair catch though, wasn't it? Yes.
We might have to hunt that one down and put it on our socials.
It is pretty,
for sure.
It is pretty specky.
Absolutely.
I think it was probably the highlight of the Big Bash for telecast there for a while. So
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Back for the Strikers again, Jake. Probably a little bit up in the air where you hopefully bat. Will we hopefully see you at the top, and hopefully see you and Alex probably won't. Alex will hopefully be the Australian side. Who knows after the ridiculous World Cup selection. And that, but hopefully if you're batting with Alex, we don't see some more Graham Wood, Rick Darling running between the wickets between the two of you.
And I'm not too sure what's going to happen this year. We've got a few different recruits, so I'm happy to jump down into the middle order as well. Whatever. I like to think I'm pretty versatile in my role. Over in Perth now, just sort of honing my skills and getting ready. Obviously with all the boys playing red ball cricket still, me not being a part of that squad, so I'm just coming over here to get ready for whatever happens in the future.
So who's your batting coach over there at the moment with you, Jake?
I've got a guy called Tom Scully. We're about to get us some balls now, actually. So we're just getting ready. He's one of the guys who does a thing called cricket mentoring over in Perth. So he's really good mates with a guy called Chris Rogers, who I'm very close mates with, the coach of Victoria, and I did a lot of work with. And then so they have very similar theories. So we're all very close mates. So I just come across here and spend a few days over here training and getting ready, and sort of gets me away from Tassie, which the weather's been a bit miserable the last few days. So
it's terrible over here today, mate.
Adelaide's
it was
not much better.
Incredible. It's not often
I was in Adelaide for about an hour last night. It was shocking.
Oh, he bucketed down. Bucket being the operative word. And talking of the Strikers too, there is a bit of an amusing thing where David Payne from England, last week's guest, was David Payne, the ex-Nord footballer Weathers. So Payne's pretty keen to throw the word around that he's been signed by the Strikers as well. So he's playing that line today, Payne. So, yes.
Very good,
Look, Jake, all the best for the future. Obviously, you desperately hope you get back in the Tasmanian Shield side. I think you took your shocking decision in Adelaide here in South Australia. That was. So they're at the Shield game. sat with Jake's mum for a fair while. Jake got given out caught behind. I reckon, say that was 3:40. I reckon Jake's mum drove out of the car park at 3:41. And I came over and sat with Jake afterwards because I went and asked, where's Agar? I said, did Jake hit that? He said, he's nowhere near it, Malcolm. And, so then we had a chat there. So you're bloody unlucky because you were hitting him all right then. So hopefully there's some runs to come for Tasmania, gets in the Shield side, and good luck in the Big Bash. And I'm sure I'll catch up with you at some stage at Adelaide Oval during the Big Bash and that Weathers. And we greatly appreciate you giving up your time over in WA today, mate.
No worries at all. I appreciate having me, guys.
Thanks, Weathers. Fantastic to have you on today.
Thanks, mate.
Greatly appreciated, Jake. Mate. Touch base soon. Thanks, mate.
See you guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Happy days.
Okay, Phil, this is my part of this podcast where we have a little bit of fun. I do a bit of research in my spare time and come up with some unusual statistics. We call it Happy Days because generally we're celebrating, and on this occasion we're celebrating the birthday of Nick Murray this week. Joined the Crows list via the AFL preseason supplementary list or selection period and is now on the rookie list. Had a pretty good year in 2023, obviously getting injured, but coming from the Greater Western Sydney Reserves competition.
Yeah, good player. Another one of those that showing looks like he's going to be okay.
Yep.
So they've got to hold on to him again. And, signing again, that's what they want. So
losing Duday, he now becomes probably a little bit more critical to their backline.
Exactly. Duday, a rate Duday. I know he hurt the knee, but he'll come back okay. He'll be handy for Brisbane. But, yeah, Murray's going to be a key for them now. So they're going to hang on to him.
Absolutely. Rupturing his ACL in round 19, so they are going to miss him for a good period of 2024, but I think the Crows are building quite nicely to a pretty good future, and I see him being a little bit like that Daniel Talia, Ben Rutten style backman. Will be very, very important to them.
Absolutely. They don't grow on trees, do they?
They don't.
Key sort of bigger lads, and he's going to be good for them.
Absolutely. All right, mate, we move on to cricket. 1892, you were around for this one, weren't you?
I reckon Rick played in it.
He did. You're right, actually. We might get Rick on the line. The commencement of the first Sheffield Shield game between South Australia and New South Wales was in 1892, this week.
Wow. There you go.
I had to dig very, very deep.
Sure, you did.
I think Rick might enjoy this little statistic. Obviously, Malcolm very passionate about the Sheffield Shield, as is Rick as well. Thought I'd chuck that one in there. Okay, South Australia not doing so well at the moment in the Shield. They are on a bit of hiatus at the moment because of the Test cricket and the BBL and all that kind of jazz that goes on. Didn't get off to a good start in the first half of the season, and we'll be looking for a big improvement in the second half of the season.
Absolutely.
All right, mate, we move on. Tennis. Arthur Ashe in your wheelhouse as well as mine. Arthur Ashe names Illustrated Sports Person of the Year in 1992.
Yeah, what a player. You know, first American Negro, I think, to
correct
win a lot of these big, Grand Slams, and I mean, you can't argue with that, can you?
No, just happened to be flipping channels the other day. SBS have got a bit of a special going on at the moment called The Gods of Tennis. They're talking about Bjorn Borg and McEnroe, Arthur Ashe, Billie Jean King, Martina Navratilova, Chris Evert, and especially the rivalries Jimmy Connors. It's a 3-part series, I believe. The first part of the series was actually about Arthur Ashe and how Arthur Ashe and Billie Jean King were changing tennis or trying to change tennis for the better, and Arthur Ashe, one of those absolute gun players, and you don't actually realise what he achieved until you actually sit back and look at his record.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's when tennis was tennis. I mean, I'm sorry, Pete, but I've done 10 Opens in a row, Australian Opens, and it's just not the same now. Yep. And now Kyrgios has pulled out this year.
Yes.
Love him or hate him, he is a real entertainer, and he is just unbelievable. His tennis ability is phenomenal, and it's a boring sport now, Pete.
Yes. We got a couple of players sort of dominating it. We haven't got the rivalry of Nadal and Federer or Federer and Djokovic or Nadal and Djokovic. It's just something missing. And you're right, they do need those entertainment factors, and it has become a little bit sanitised.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good point.
But, anyway.
We move on.
Yep.
This week in 2015, Irishman Conor McGregor locks out Brazil's Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. 13 seconds. And it would have been a pretty fair payday as well to win his first featherweight title in Las Vegas.
I reckon I'd go there for 13 seconds and cop a couple and hit the deck.
Walk away with a couple of million. Yeah, I reckon that's not too bad. But controversial Conor McGregor, obviously. Yeah. What can you say? He was at the peak of his time. 13 seconds is pretty good.
Sure. Absolutely.
And to round us out, mate, 1985, Australian cricketer David Boone, first Test century, 123 versus India at Adelaide Oval.
Unbelievable, wasn't he, Bernie? I mean, 48 cans to England or something like
yes.
that. I think that's his biggest record.
We've had him on for the last couple of weeks as part of this segment in a couple of records that he's sort of set, and it always comes up, the trip to England, setting records left, right and centre.
But, yeah, he was phenomenal, and not the world's best athlete. Like, he was always carrying a couple pounds.
I think that's why I probably resonate with him quite a lot. Is that, I've lost a little bit of weight recently, but, I was carrying a few extra pounds and always batting above my weight, that's for sure. All right, mate, let's scoot into the extra time. Big finish.
Yep.
Extra time. Big finish.
All right, to kick us off today, we've got the baseball, mate. The Adelaide Giants. Their game against the Melbourne Aces was washed out due to 35 millimetres of rain last weekend. You needed a boat just to step outside the front door at one stage there. Round 5 games were coming up against the Canberra Cavalry this weekend. It started on Thursday. They did score the night before, 27 runs to 9.
Really?
Yes, really.
I wasn't aware of that, Pete, but that's unbelievable. You can sit there and watch that and they only get 3 or 4 runs. And
I think from memory, I'd need to triple check this because I did write it down last minute quickly. An ABL record. So the Adelaide Giants are setting records left, right and centre here at the moment. First couple of games with the number of runs, they were ahead. I think they had a run difference of 43 different in the first 2 rounds. And now they've hit 27 in one game. They did give up 9.
Nine's a winning score.
That's an AFLW. That's an AFLW score or an NRL score.
Exactly.
Crazy. They did, I believe, go down 5-4 last night, but obviously they play a couple of games today on Saturday, so we'll see how they go. Yeah. Sitting top of the table relatively comfortably at the moment. We have talked that they don't want to be dropping too many games because there are a couple of teams that will sort of breathe down their neck a little bit, but I think they're well in hand and got some very, very good players.
Very good.
All right, we move on to the basketball now. I did say we were going to make some weird sort of comments about some unusual things happening, and the basketball definitely happened. The Cairns Taipans and Sydney Kings were involved in a bizarre game where both coaches agreed to no shot clock. This happened because there was a little bit of a storm that had happened, a little bit like Adelaide here, in that the power had gone out. Something had gone wrong with the scoreboard and the shot clocks. So both coaches agreed to allow the game to go ahead, but no shot clocks were actually enforced. Bizarre.
That is unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, don't the coaches have a lot to say on the sideline to the umpires or the refs or whatever they call? It's unbelievable. That'd do my head in if I was trying to umpire that game. I mean, that's sitting right on them,
Yes, and there's always words being exchanged or questions being asked.
No shot clocks.
No shot clocks.
I wasn't even aware of that.
No, I think it was for the second half of that game. So players took it in stride.
Yep.
Pretty much all did the right thing, kept it pretty reasonable. And the crowd that was already there didn't want to see another abandoned game. Right. So a bit of a weird one for us there. And then the second weirdest thing that happened in basketball was in America. The San Antonio Spurs coach, Greg Popovich, halted an NBA game, shut down his own team's fans for jeering one of their former champions. Never seen that ever before in my life.
Wow.
Actually gets on the microphone, the announcer's microphone, and says, hey, stop booing and jeering this player. You show him some more respect in the middle of a game.
Well, it can only happen in America, can't it?
Unbelievable. So basketball has seen a couple of really weird things in the last week or so that has left me scratching my head, and I thought we'd bring it into our extra time big finish today to talk about.
Couple of interesting points there.
Absolutely. All right, we move on to the NRL. Michael Maguire has agreed to a multi-year deal, named the New South Wales Blues coach.
Good luck to him. You know,
I mean, personally, I'm a bit of a Brisbane fan. Whenever it comes state of origin time, I'm probably a little bit more on the Queensland bandwagon.
I probably am too.
They needed to do something, and they've appointed a new coach, so good luck to them. You're right. And
absolutely.
Nathan Cleary, currently involved with a Socceroo, Mary Fowler, and was asked a few questions and just move along. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, there you go.
High-profile couples got to expect the questions are going to come.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why you're out there, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we move on to tennis, mate. Sam Stosur announced her return to tennis as Australia's Billie Jean Cup captain after a year out of the sport.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I know Sam a little bit. Lucky enough, tournament in Newry, she obviously missed nobody back then.
Yep.
600 in the world. Used to stay at my mate's house in Tanunda.
Yes.
And got to talk to her a couple of times over in the Open. So, lovely girl.
Yep.
I think she'll be fine for that job.
Alicia Mollick, obviously, another South Australian player that was heading up the Billie Jean King, has come back and is now going to be the tournament director at the Adelaide International.
Yeah, saw that.
Absolutely fantastic for her. And Sam Stosur, I think, will fit in quite seamlessly.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Novak Djokovic wishes that he had the Federer-Nadal friendship. What do we make of that? I mean, does that probably explain where Djokovic is probably held?
He's that sort of a weirder cat, isn't he? He's out there a bit. Can be live on the edge.
Yep.
What would you say, Pete? Whereas
Absolutely.
Federer and Nadal, went about their tennis just fantastic,
seamlessly at times. Yes, they had this great rivalry.
Yep.
Maybe some thought it was a bigger rivalry as far as they didn't like each other as much in the early days, but wasn't the case. They were actually quite close and quite friendly, and even to the point where, their academies that they opened up, that the other one was there supporting them as part of the event, and you just look at that and go, you can't buy friendship like that, can you?
No, you can't. You can't. And Djokovic is just probably out there a little bit more, probably, a bit harder to take at times, I think, Pete.
Absolutely.
But, he's good for tennis. Let's face it, he's good for tennis. So.
Agreed.
Yep.
And to finish us off on the tennis, mate, the rivalry which we did talk about a little bit earlier with Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert, their friendship was again shown that Chris Evert was diagnosed a little bit earlier this week with an illness. Martina, one of the first people to get on the front foot and go visit her.
Well, Martina's struggling with her own. She had a touch of cancer going back 12 months ago. So fantastic, though. I mean, Chris Evert was one of my favourites. Pretty little blonde. And
mine too.
My word, she could play some tennis. But Martina, she was just another
level.
That strength. I think she's one of those real strong players. That's great, to reach out to her in a time of need.
Absolutely. And like we said a bit earlier, the series on SBS was sort of highlighting that they did have that competitive streak, but they were quite friendly as well, and a bit like Nadal and Federer as well. So, and to finish us off on the SNFL, the Port Adelaide Football Club are mourning one of their greatest ever figures, 8-time premiership player and life member Neville Chicken Hayes, passed away at 88 years of age.
Unreal. Probably before my time. I can't really recall back then. I probably did watch him play, but obviously a legend of the club. 8 premierships, so there's a few of them around.
Absolutely.
Timmy Jennifer 7 or something, isn't it? And, there's a few around, but it's always sad, but 88's not a bad knock, is it? So
take that innings any day.
So,
we wish his family the best, and obviously the Port Adelaide faithful will remember him, obviously, at the start of the 2024 season, which Port are very, very good at doing. All right, mate. Phil, we finish off each week. We just have a little bit of fun where we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly for the week in sport. Is there a good moment that you can remember?
Wow, you put me on the spot here.
Absolutely,
Pete.
mate.
Well, it's obviously Warner.
Yep.
I think that'd have to be my good.
Yep.
To see him step up. I mean, he could have. I think he did put a chance. Gave him a chance, didn't he? Early,
yep.
But he got away with it and went on with his innings. So there's my good.
Yep. And you're bad for the week, mate?
Ooh, now we've got another one. That's a good question. I'm going to stick cricket, and I thought probably Travis Head, the way he got out. I think he tends to give his wicket away.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was a bit disappointed. I like to see him go
on with it.
I love the way he plays. He's very fast and, entertaining.
Yep.
But I think at times he just gives it away a little bit too easy.
Oh, fair call. And you're ugly for the week?
Probably me, being on your radio show for the first
mate,
time.
Don't say that, mate. Thank you for joining us. My good for the week is probably the baseball, the Adelaide Giants, 27 runs.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. What a score. Batting obviously very, very deep there. My bad for the week has probably been the media around Davey Warner, in that, I was sort of a bit like you before the series. Oh, do we give him a chance? Don't we? He then goes out and performs, and yet the media is still looking for angles to sort of bring that down a little bit. So for me, it's probably the cricket media a little bit. And my ugly for the week, I'm going to stick with cricket as well, is probably the pitch that got, was quite dangerous down in Geelong there, that didn't get a game started as well. So that's probably my ugly, especially with the technology that we've got around these days.
Absolutely.
You probably would have thought that they might have done a little bit better there. But anyway, that's how it is, and that's what happens in sport. It does change. So, Phil, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you and hear your thoughts. It's good to hear a different voice as well every now and then. But obviously, mad Port fan.
Absolutely.
You've got your podcast up in the Barossa. Give it a little bit of a plug.
Oh, it's just Call of Broadcasting, Rick and Phil's. Yep, that's it. So we have a bit of fun doing it, and it's not quite as professional as this
that's right.
here.
We're hoping to get together with a little bit of a network and get you guys on and promote you guys as part of our network as well. So thanks for joining us today, mate.
Happy to do it.
All
Thanks,
right.
Pete.
Thanks, mate. As usual, we promise to do better next week.
Malcolm's back.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.